and the People Daily. These are the key papers that we look at. We start off with the People Daily, and here we go. The People Daily, schools buckle under weight of 100% transition. We all have seen what the Ministry of Education has been doing to us, making sure that we have all our students transition to high school. But even as this is happening, it appears that, of course, the Ministry of Education is focused much on getting the numbers set, but they do not look at the aspect of quality, in the sense that, we've seen other schools having to push themselves to levels where they are transforming their dining halls or other crucial facilities to being dormitories, to being classrooms, because the numbers are quite huge. A story captured on page 4, raises concerns as to how best we are set, first of all, to deal with the competency-based curriculum activities or competency-based curriculum system, and above everything, to make sure that our students are able to get quality education. So it's a conversation that is on as we talk of 100% transition, and therefore we wait to see how the stakeholders of matters education are going to take up this, and what the members of parliament, who are equally tasked towards ensuring that education is well catered for, are going to do to make sure that our students get the best. Hope in fight against COVID-19, a story captured on page 19. This at a point where, as a country, we are set to receive more jabs from different parts of the world, and of course KNH and Gotv is set to administer their first jab on Johnson & Johnson vaccine. That is today, and is a story captured on page 10 of the Daily Nation, and equally a story captured on page 9 of the People Daily as to the strides we are making to deal with COVID-19 in the country. And so we look at all this and much more. Away from it, Guinea in the eye of coup storm. Soldiers say they have taken over, but government denies regime change. It has been a wind of change across the African countries, and Guinea appears not to be left behind. So much has been happening, a state of despondence across the different parts of African countries, and we've witnessed how change has cropped in. We've witnessed how governments have been overthrown, and it appears that the search is likely to take or to culminate in Guinea. As we all keenly look at what will play out, we'll certainly be here to keep you up to tabs. And away from that, Harambee Stars face uphill task after Rwanda draw, a story captured on page 32 on Matters Politics. It's not been all rosy for the Stars, but they are still, of course, focusing on the prize to make sure that they make us proud as a country. And on matters, a bit of, we'd call it politics, bishops seek to reconcile Uhuruto, and of course clerics say they have made progress in bringing the two together, since their differences are not ideological but fear and suspicion. Is it the case? A story captured on page 6. We'll be getting the views of the gentlemen that we have on board this morning, just so they would tell us whether indeed it's fear and suspicion that has gotten these two, speaking in different tongues. I would always say they've been gentlemen of red ties, same suits, same shirts, but it appears like, such is not what is being witnessed today. What could have informed this, and what will it take for the clergy to be successful in their bid? Silas Diego says, we are optimistic that we shall reignite the talks and bring together the two while allies. And of course, we have Anthony Muheria saying, of course, it is in the interest of every Kenyan for the two leaders to work together. Is it so? Certainly a question of wait and see. This at a point where the Deputy President feels like, the state is in a bid to scuttle his presidential bid. It's a story captured on page 2 of the People Daily. Senior officials fighting my State House bid, says Deputy President William Ruto. This is yesterday after he encountered a hostile crowd during his tour of some parts of the central region. We'll also be getting the views of the gentlemen on board as to this, and what does it speak about his bid for Mount Kenya. On the other hand, Right Honorable Raila Odinga denies claims that by his opponents about dark forces and witchcraft for the longest of time. Such has been the allegation. ODM leader Raila Odinga denied yet again yesterday claims by Deputy President William Ruto that he is a believer in witchcraft. He also denied that relies on dark forces, or that he relies on dark forces to advance his political career. His argument is that, well, if such was the case, then he probably would not have gone through the tough times that he's gone through in his fight on quest for democracy, for liberation, for multi-party politics in the country, and so much more. Just reminding himself or the people of the times that he suffered during the Moi reign, and of course being incarcerated in cells and dingy holes for a whole like 24 hours. And also clearly acknowledging the fact that, if such was the case, then at least he would have garnered the presidency, something that he's had a quest for the longest of time, but in vain. That is the People Daily, the Standard newspaper front page. And here we are. There is so much also that has been captured on the front page of the Standard newspaper on this 6th day of September. Kingi starts a recruitment drive for new party, a story captured on page 12. He's been amongst the key coastal leaders who've spoken of a coastal unity, or just getting to have a coast region party that will also help them bargain while sitting on the table, that they would be able to get something for this particular region. And therefore he's had some bit of push and pull at the level of ODM, and evidently now seeks to just get his way out, or probably just to push an agenda that will be helpful towards making sure that the people of the coastal region are able to also call the shots somehow, when of course people are sitting on the table that are making decisions pertaining to Kenya's political future. And that aside, well, Harambee Stars held by Rwanda, story captured on page 40. That in regards to Martha Sports, we hope that they'll be able to redeem themselves. A split cabinet like no other. President Uhuru Kenyatta has openly differed with his deputy and even asked him to quit government. And with cabinet secretaries taking on the DP, it is not surprising the top decision-making body has not met for 6 months. A story captured on page 4 and 5. This upon rife talks that there are likelihoods that President Uhuru Kenyatta is going to shuffle his cabinet. Whether this will be instrumental for him to be able to realize something at least before he exits the stage come 2022 is certainly a question of wait and see. Rather than subvert government system and efforts from within, the honorable thing would be for him to resign and openly join opposition. Was of Fred Matiang'i, Interior Cabinet Secretary. This against Deputy President William Ruto. On the other side, if you cannot respect the president, then you do not deserve to be respected by anyone. In fact, the DP is a clerk to the president. Keriako Tobiko, Environment Cabinet Secretary, and we also know what it is that CS Joe Moteru had to tell Deputy President William Ruto, evidently a clear indication that it is not all rosy within the cabinet, while others say that there could be moles within the cabinet that, are just waiting for that moment of a click, and then they will exit the stage officially to proceed to the other side of Tanga or the other side of Deputy President William Ruto. When they are considered as moles, certainly are being considered as people who, dish out information to the other side, that is the Tanga side, evidently going against what President Uhuru Kenyatta would wish, who is their boss. And so we'll be discussing that and what then this means for the political scenario in the country. Are they overstepping their mandate, firing shots at Deputy President William Ruto, who's as well part and parcel of the presidency? Certainly a question, that is at hand, and many looking so much, or maybe just viewing so much or reading so much into all this. This at a point when CJ's charm offensive gets results, and although the list of achievements is modest, it is sufficient to signal that the Chief Justice enjoys the confidence of the executive. A story captured on page 10 and 11 at a point where there's been evidently bad blood between the executive and the judiciary. Lots of conversation as to the "we shall revisit" statement that was dished out by President Uhuru Kenyatta after his elections were nullified in 2017. And here we are. It appears like, it is Justice or Chief Justice as the darling of the executive. But how easy is it going to be, especially at this point where there's also that litmus test when the Attorney General declares that he would proceed to challenge the appellate court's ruling on the BBI. Once they take that precedence, what would it mean? Once they decide to go to the level of the Supreme Court, will the Supreme Court uphold that ruling or go against the ruling? And what would that mean is a conversation that has been captured on page 10 and 11 as to how the Chief Justice now, Martha Koome, is able to deal with the executive. CBC riddle, competency-based curriculum, will bear cost, or who will bear the cost of this? Fears emerge as the burden could be pushed down to parents, as others see the new curriculum as one for the rich or enlightened society and expensive for the economy and parents. A story captured on page 14 and 15. If you've bought books for your students or for your children, if you've taken them to school, then you probably could resonate with this argument. And we'll be looking at more on that. We certainly hope that someday we're going to have a special view on the CBC, and we just get to understand what the government has planned towards making sure that it works. Right Honorable Raila Odinga pledges affordable housing and healthcare to all. That is his 2022 strategy. ODM leader regrets that many families have been impoverished by medical bills, citing instances where bodies have been detained by hospitals over outstanding bills. A story captured on page 6. Certainly, any other presidential candidate would be out there to speak of their interests towards making changes in the country, just so to see whether they'd be able to woo the voters to their side. And briefly on what has been captured on the Daily Nation, as earlier mentioned, KNH Gotv to administer first Johnson & Johnson vaccine. That is from today. And on this other side, 400,000 people face starvation in coast. That is Kilifi, Kwale, Tana River, and Lamu, hardest hit. A story captured on page 9. What could be informing this? One of the conversations that we certainly need to have and task our leaders to explain, and what will it take to get these people off the hook of starvation. And 3 churches had already declined to host the Deputy President for Sunday service. This in regards to politics and religion. Shame of Uhuru to men in church fight. And a tiny church in Kieni, Nyeri County yesterday turned into a theater of political intolerance that pitted President Kenyatta's supporters against those of his estranged deputy William Ruto. The rival groups clashed in a chaotic day of drama and claims of state involvement in a fracas. A story captured on page 4. Certainly, this is not the kind of intolerance that we wish for, and we therefore say that there needs to be conversations that will help us, so that when we get to the electioneering period, or when we get to the actual electioneering moment, then we should not experience such, because this is certainly recipe to disaster. On matters education, help shocker for new college varsity students. Hundreds of thousands of 2020 Form 4 leavers are staring at a bumpy ride. This as they prepare themselves to hit the colleges and universities starting this morning without funding from the Higher Education Loans Board. And a total of about 128,073 students were placed in universities and 193,949 in colleges 3 weeks ago. And a majority are still applying for the HELB funding. HELB CEO Charles Wingara says that the earliest first-year students can expect the funds in their accounts is early October. How handy will that come in? It's a little bit of a delay. We hope to see how then this would be addressed. And WhatsApp could stop working on your phone. How old is your smartphone? A messaging platform WhatsApp wants to know, as it will no longer work on some versions of smartphones starting November the 1st. It's going to be interesting to watch. I hope you take a keen look at that, so that you're not left off these very, very important platform of communication. I am not Amganga, says Right Honorable Raila Odinga. I think we've touched on that, and he speaks of a scenario where a majority have labeled him as an individual who's used witchcraft to just make political gains, but he says such has not been the case. He hails from the Anglican side of a church, and therefore it would be misplaced for people to consider him as a person who highly depends on witchcraft for his political gains. Guinea in turmoil as, of course, their claims by coup, or their claims of a coup, and turmoil engulfed the impoverished West African nation as army said that they had captured the president and staged a coup, even as the government insisted it had repelled the attack. We'll be looking at details of the same, any updates to make sure that you are well informed. A story captured on page 21. And on that note, we cross over to looking at